As a Valorant player who has way too many hours in the game, has hit Ascendant 2 and never been back because I'm bad, but we don't talk about it, and has been playing since beta, I've just started picking up CSGO. I've never played CS2. Valorant was actually my first shooter, I want to say, on PC. So I bought Prime, and so I could play with my friends, and I'm currently grinding. I'm only level 6. But I wanted to talk about some of the things that I've noticed as a Valorant player. A lot of the differences. The first thing is that the leveling system is a little weird. It's taking forever to get to Premier Mode, level 10, which is fine. But the more that I played quite a bit in like the first week that I got it. I got like an XP reduction. And I was looking online, and that was apparently that happens like every week if you hit a certain cap of XP, which is really weird to me because when you want your players to play more, it seemed really strange that you would limit something like getting a higher level if they played too much. That's really strange to me. I really haven't had any difficulties with leveling. So far I'm 61% to Premier, so I'll be able to play that soon. Right now I've just been grinding deathmatch and comp. So I'm gonna get into a deathmatch and just kind of play around, and then I want to talk about some of the gameplay differences. One of the main things that I've loved about being a Valorant player is that this game, the gunplay feels extremely similar. Obviously, Valorant's gunplay is basically ripped from CS, and that is why it feels so similar. One thing that I have noticed is that shotguns in this game are kind of ridiculous. Shotguns are extremely good in this game. I haven't used them much just because I usually don't use shotguns in video games. So the gunplay is very similar. The one thing that makes the gunplay and gunfights very different is the movement. This game feels like you're on ice skates if you're coming from Valorant. It is way more momentum based, and that's because of Valve's engine. I'm not very good at the movement. Counter strafing feels very different just because of how much you move, like how much your momentum carries. And like in Valorant, if you wanna stop, counter strafing doesn't matter. Like if you're holding A on Valorant, you don't need to press D to stop as soon as possible. If you just let go of A, it's actually the same speed. So counter strafing technically isn't a thing in Valorant, and so that makes the gunplay quite a bit harder in this game, and that's why I think part of the skill ceiling is so high compared to Valorant, because the movement is a lot harder to master. One more of the gameplay things is that util is kind of hard to use. It's not just because I don't know the maps or like the timing of pushes or anything like that. It's because util in this game is so vastly different from Valorant. Lineups are very necessary if you want to be good at this game. On Valorant, you can kind of bullshit it. You don't need lineups on Valorant, and I think that is one of the reasons the util is so hard. The second reason is that the movement of your guy changes how your like smokes and stuff go. After talking about util, I want to talk a little about the volumetric smokes. I really love the way you can play with the smokes, and obviously that was a huge thing. Like a huge part of the reason they made CS2 was the volumetric smokes and the amount of versatility you can get with having those. Like you can use nades to blow the smokes out of the way and shoot through the smokes and be able to see through a little. It's pretty damn cool. Keeping on the theme of the changes that they made to this game, the graphics look phenomenal. The water especially just looks perfect. This is exactly the type of thing that Valve needed to do to get newer people into this game, is update the graphics, because I think that is a huge thing for a lot of people, a lot of gamers. Now I want to talk about some things that I think are why I don't really want to make this like my main streaming game. One is the cheaters. Everyone knows that cheating is a huge problem in CS, and it always has been. They said they were gonna fix it. From what I've heard, they really haven't, like, at all. And so that's one thing that I'm a little scared of if I do, you know, start getting up in those higher ranks, which I plan to do, but I'm scared that even though I'll be playing Premier, there's gonna be a ton of cheaters. And I'm not very confident in Valve that they're going to fix it, just because Valve is too lazy and that costs too much money, because it's been a part of this game for so long, so why change it, because everyone's already dealing with it anyway, which is kind of a scummy company thing. Like, don't you want your player base to be, you know, feel like this is the best that this game could be? Another thing that I'm not super stoked of Valve doing is the tick rate. So they came up with a whole new system of handling tick rate. I'm not going to try and say that I do understand it, because I don't. What I do know is that a lot of people are complaining about it because it's giving incorrect information to the player. Technically, the sub-tick system is supposed to be more accurate than any game ever, from what I've heard. But it's giving incorrect feedback to the player because it's only rendering half the ticks that it seems like it's rendering. It doesn't feel great, and here's the problem with that. They tried a different solution, but the better solution would have just been to not be a cheap-ass company and upgrade your servers to 128 ticks. It just seems kind of scummy that they just kind of did a workaround for it, and people aren't really liking it, and I doubt they'll change it because that costs a lot of money. So I just think it's kind of a scummy thing to do, but I don't know. It's not really anything that we can change unless you do use a third-party app like Faceit. And that brings me into my another issue. You gotta have a good enough anti-cheat and good enough servers so that new players, like people like me that they're trying to get from Valorant and all these other FPS, so that they don't feel like they so much work to get into this game. Because if you want to really play the best version of CS possible, you're gonna need to play on Faceit. It's a whole other thing that you need to get used to using, when all the new players want to do is just get in and play a game, you know? And then I would say for my last thing, and this kind of goes back to a company thing and more of like a community thing in general, in like the community of gaming. Why is this release any different from Overwatch 2? Because, I mean, Overwatch 2 was bad just because, yes, it was probably worse than this, because they promised things that they weren't end up ever gonna implement, like PvE. But even disregarding that, people were so mad that that was called Overwatch 2, even though they did like what, 3 things: updated the graphics, put in a new hero, like changed it to 5v5, like things that could have been implemented in one update and did not need to be a second game, just so they could, like, extort every little penny out of their player base, because, oh, it's this whole new thing. And how is that any different from this, really? What'd they say? They were gonna update the graphics, which they did. Volumetric smoke, which is a whole new thing. That's like adding 5v5 into Overwatch. It's like the same kind of concepts. It's like one mechanic that probably could have just been implemented into the game in one update, but whatever, it's a cool mechanic. They said they were gonna fix the cheating problem. That's still a massive problem. They said they were gonna fix tick rates. Instead of fixing tick rates, they just made it feel kind of worse, from what I've heard. And basically what I'm trying to say with this is, I don't understand why Blizzard's release of Overwatch 2 was so hated, and this is like the second coming of Christ in video games. But it doesn't make any sense to me that this game was so praised that it was the second, it was the second game coming out, when they changed like the graphics and one mechanic. Everything else has been the same, I feel like. I don't know. This was kind of a long, ranty video on all the different things that I've experienced kind of as a Valorant player coming to a new game, kind of exactly like Valorant, what Valorant was based off of. And those are some of my thoughts. I would love to hear what you guys think in the comments, especially about Blizzard and like how this game is any different from that release. Yeah, let me know what you guys think, and hopefully I'll have some CS content coming out soon. Trying to get Premiere so I can play it on stream, because that's, from what I've heard, is way better than just regular. So I'll catch you guys in the next one. Now I'm gonna give... Oh my god. That was horrible. Oh! Holy sheesh, that was clean. Oh my god, I'm still going. That was horrible.